The twin suns of Core 7 hung low, painting the wastelands in molten orange and blood-red light. Wind howled through the skeletons of ancient starships half buried in dunes of glass. Captain Daniel Hayes adjusted the filter on his helmet, his boots crunching over shards of alien metal. He'd been sent to salvage a derelict communication. Array routine work for the Galactic Frontier Corps. But Core 7 never felt routine. The planet had a pulse, a hum, like something buried deep beneath its crust still breathing. Hayes. Status check. The voice crackled over comes his partner, Dr. Nira Fallon, orbiting above in the Endeavor. Still breathing, Doc, he replied. Just me, the wind, and about 3,000 tons of ghost metal. Copy that. Radiation spikes in 5 minutes. Don't dawdle, he grinned. When do I ever? Then he heard a sound that didn't belong. A soft whimper, like a small animal crying out from beneath twisted hull plating. He froze. His hand went to his plasma sidearm. The whimper came again. Softer, desperate. Hayes knelt, pushing aside metal fragments. There, curled in the shadow of a shattered bulkhead, was a creature, a cub, feline in shape, striped with faint bioluminescent patterns that shimmered under his light. Its fur was matted with dust, and its golden eyes were wide with hunger and fear. Easy there, little guy, Hayes muttered. He reached into his ration pouch and pulled out a nutrient bar, breaking it in half. The cub sniffed it, then snatched it from his hand, devouring it with trembling jaws. Something about it hit him hard. The fragility, the trust. The universe had burned worlds for less, and here he was feeding a lost creature on a dead one. He smiled softly. Guess we're both strays, huh? The cub purred faintly, curling against his boot for warmth. Hayes glanced at his wrist display, radiation rising fast. Sorry, kid, I gotta move. He set the cub down and turned toward his ship beacon, but as he walked away he heard it again, a growl. Deep, resonant, and close. He spun. Out of the crimson fog emerged a silhouette, tall, feline, and unmistakably intelligent. Her fur shimmered like bronze silk, her eyes molten gold. She moved with the grace of a huntress and the power of a storm. The cub chirped and ran to her. She caught it in her arms, her gaze never leaving Hayes. He raised his hand slowly. Hey there, I didn't mean any harm. Her voice, when it came, was melodic but edged like steel. You fed my child. Didn't seem right to let it starve, he said. She stepped closer, studying him. The translator implant struggled with her tone, half growled. Humans are scavengers, thieves. Why would you show mercy? Hayes shrugged. Because I can. The wind whipped around them, scattering dust. She tilted her head, intrigued. You are strange. Most would have left him to die. I'm not most, Hayes said quietly. The cub chirped again, nestling into her fur. She softened slightly. I am Sakara of the Tavern, she said finally. You are on sacred ground, human. The graves of my ancestors lie beneath your boots. He looked around at the shipwrecks. Then they were warriors. They were gods, she replied. Her gaze lingered on him a beat too long. And now, one feeds their child. Before he could answer, the ground trembled. The wreckage groaned as dust cascaded from above. Hayes instinctively grabbed her arm. Move. An explosion ripped through the dunes. A black-winged dropship descended, its hull emblazoned with the sigil of the Dominion of Chains. Slavers, hunters of both human and Taveran alike. Sakara hissed. They've found us. Friends of yours? Hayes asked dryly, her claws extended. Enemies of all, the cub whimpered. Hayes drew his blaster. Then let's make them regret it. The first shots screamed across the desert. Plasma fire painted the ruins blue. Hayes dove behind cover as Sakara leapt, her claws slicing through the metal of the nearest soldier's armor. The two fought as one, instinctively. He shot, she struck. He ducked, she roared. When the last of the Dominion troopers fell, silence reclaimed the graveyard once more. Sakara stood over the body's chest, heaving, her fur streaked with ash. You fight well for a scavenger. He grinned. You fight well for a goddess. She blinked almost a smile before kneeling to cradle her cub. You risked your life for one not your own. Why? Because someone should, Hayes said simply. For the first time, she looked uncertain. My people call that kind of mercy weakness. Then your people never met a Marine. Far above, the Dominion dropship ignited in the sky, calling for reinforcements. Sakara's golden eyes turned toward the horizon. They'll return in greater numbers. Then we don't wait for them, Hayes replied. We find somewhere safe together. Her tail flicked. You presume much, human. Maybe, he said with a half smile, but I'm betting on instinct. And under the burning suns of Corsaven, a human and a tigress warrior fled side by side into the storm. The first step toward something the galaxy hadn't seen in millennia. Trust between predator and prey. The desert storms of Corsaven howled for 3 days. Hayes and Sakara took refuge in the hollowed remains of an ancient freighter, its walls scorched, its bones creaking under the weight of sand. The cub, now asleep beside a flickering heater, purred softly, its fur glowing with faint golden light. Sakara crouched nearby, sharpening her blade with slow, deliberate strokes. The reflection of plasma firelight danced in her eyes. Hayes watched her from across the narrow compartment. You keep doing that, he said, nodding toward her claws, and you'll cut through the ship. Better the ship than my nerves, she growled softly. The Dominion won't stop hunting us. They marked me long ago. Why? Hayes asked. You don't strike me as someone easy to capture. She paused, her gaze distant. I led a rebellion. My pride, my clan were slaughtered when I refused to kneel. My cub was all I could save. Hayes looked at the child. You're a mother and a warrior, a hell of a combination. Her ears flicked slightly, amused despite herself. And you, human, what drives you to fight? He hesitated. I lost my squad 2 years ago. Dominion ambush. I got out. They didn't. He looked at the fire. Since then I've been trying to make it mean something. Silence hung between them, the kind that wasn't empty, but heavy with understanding. Finally, Sakara stood and moved closer. You risked your life for my child. That debt must be honored. You have my loyalty. And my claws. Hayes smiled faintly. I'll take both. A faint chime from his wristcom broke the moment. Static hissed. Then Dr. Fallon's voice crackled through. Hayes, your vitals disappeared for hours. What the hell happened down there? Picked up a few strays, he said. And a war. Figures, Fallon muttered. I'm tracing a Dominion beacon moving toward your position. Big one, dropship class. Sakara's ears flattened. They found us. Hayes grabbed his rifle. Then we move now. Outside, the storm had thinned to a copper haze. The wrecked horizon stretched before them like the ribs of some ancient beast. They ran, Hayes with his rifle ready, Sakara with her blade gleaming, and the cub perched in a sling across her back. They reached a canyon carved by old plasma strikes, a labyrinth of rock and metal. Hayes scanned the ridges. We can use the terrain. Set a trap. Sakara nodded. The Dominion favors strength over cunning. They won't expect hunters waiting for them. Within minutes they'd rigged what they could, scavenged grenades, fallen turrets, and Hayes's ingenuity. When the dropship appeared overhead, its engines screamed like thunder. Dozens of troopers descended, their armor gleaming black in the dawn. Hayes grinned grimly. Showtime. He detonated the first charge. Explosions tore through the canyon, scattering Dominion soldiers. Sakara leapt from the rocks, claws flashing like lightning. Together they struck fast, coordinated, deadly. Left flank, Hayes shouted, rolling into cover. I see them. Sakara roared, her voice echoing like thunder. She ripped through an armored suit, sparks raining around her. The cub watched from the shadows, eyes wide. But more troops poured in, too many. Hayes ducked behind a rock, reloading. We're pinned. Sakara landed beside him, bleeding from a cut across her shoulder. We can't hold this line. Then she looked at him, really looked. There is another way. Her hand went to the amulet around her neck, a shard of crystal etched with glowing runes. The rite of binding. A psychic link. It merges spirit and strength. Hayes blinked. It sounds dangerous. It is, she said, but together, we could strike as one. He hesitated only a second, then nodded. Do it. Sakara pressed the crystal between them. Breathe, human. Let the bond find you. Light flared golden and violet. He felt her rage, her pain, her fierce love for her cub. In return she felt his loss, his stubborn will, his defiance. Their hearts synchronized. The world sharpened. Every sound, every movement became one rhythm. Sakara opened her eyes, now glowing amber and human blue at once. We are one. Let's make it count, Hayes said. They burst from cover. She leaped. He fired. Every motion mirrored. Every strike doubled. Plasma bolts curved away from them as if repelled by sheer force of will. Dominion troops fell like shadows at sunrise. At the center of it all, the bond pulsed, alive, primal, intimate. She could feel his breath. He could feel her heartbeat. When the last trooper fell, silence returned. They stood back to back, panting. The psychic glow faded, but something deeper remained, a link that wouldn't break. Sakara turned to him slowly. No warrior has ever survived the rite with me. He met her gaze. Guess I'm just built different. Her lips curved, the closest thing to a smile. Perhaps the stars favor you, human. The cub bounded to them, chirping happily. Hayes crouched and ruffled its fur. Kid, your mom's terrifying. Sakara's tail flicked behind her. You have not seen terrifying yet. Hayes looked up at her at the streaks of fire painting the horizon where the Dominion fleet gathered above. Then I guess we're not done. She nodded once. No, but together, we may have a chance. As night fell across Kors, the two unlikely allies stood before the darkening sky, bound not by species or fate, but by choice. And somewhere in the orbit above, Admiral Verith of the Dominion stared at their beacon signature and growled, "Find them. Bring me the human alive." And then, the blade sang. Not a sound of metal against stone, but a resonance. A frequency that vibrated through air, soil, and bone alike. The alien observers fell silent. Their tendrils twitched, their luminous eyes widened, reflecting the golden flare of the sword. The human Dr. Elias Ward stood motionless, eyes fixed on the weapon now glowing brighter than the twin moons above. The symbols carved into the blade pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Each throb of light seemed to whisper something in the air, not in any alien tongue but in English. Welcome, bearer. The words weren't spoken, they were felt inside his skull. his chest, his very atoms. The aliens recoiled, chittering in disbelief. Their scholars had studied the sword for millennia. They had translated its warnings, theorized its makers, even built temples around it, but never had it acknowledged a single being. And now, this fragile off-world creature had awoken it in mere seconds. Elias trembled, the weight of the weapon immense yet perfectly balanced in his grasp. He could feel it alive, aware. It wasn't just a sword, it was a key. The crystalline horizon trembled. Towers of glass and silver began to hum. The ground beneath the alien city split open, revealing intricate mechanisms that had slept for eons. "What have you done?" one of the alien elders hissed, stepping forward, voice trembling with awe and terror. Elias swallowed hard. He didn't have an answer. He only knew that something ancient had chosen him, something that had waited not for strength, nor bloodline, nor species, but for understanding. "The sword responds to will," Elias whispered, "not to flesh." As he raised the blade high, the sky rippled like water. A beam of light erupted upward, piercing the clouds, connecting with something beyond, a colossal structure orbiting the planet, hidden in plain sight. Gasps echoed. The alien city fell into shadow as the light expanded, cascading across the landscape, awakening other buried relics. Elias felt a surge of memories, not his own flooding his mind, a civilization that forged weapons from stars, that encoded consciousness into steel, that fell not from war, but from forgetting their purpose. The sword wasn't a weapon of destruction, it was a reminder, a bridge. The light dimmed. Elias lowered the sword, his eyes glowing faintly with the same amber hue as the alien sun. "Maybe," he said softly, looking toward the stunned alien crowd, "you weren't meant to lift it. Maybe you were meant to guard it, until someone came who remembered how to listen." And as silence fell over the crystalline plains of Proxima Centauri b, the alien sword, once a symbol of mystery and failure, now shone as a beacon of unity between worlds. Because, in the end, it wasn't power that lifted the blade, it was understanding, and the human heart had finally proved itself worthy.